one advice that I wish I knew when I started comprehensive dentistry is that the worst thing that can happen to you is to start to be successful in comprehensive dentistry. That's the worst thing. Because success in comprehensive dentistry brings a lot of complexity. Exactly what you said.
When you start doing more comprehensive dentistry, there comes a point where just giving a verbal treatment plan to a patient just doesn't cut it, and you have to start writing letters. Now, this can be a very frustrating process. Now, of course, there's a couple of benefits of writing letters. It helps with patient communication, and I think it really does help the patients, hopefully, if the letter's good, understand the plan more. But secondly, it's good for consent. And I know it's a shame to say this, but sometimes a letter is not just for the patient, it's for some potential lawyers should something down the line not go to plan. So it's both for the patient and, unfortunately, medico-legal, especially as your plans become more comprehensive. Now, the problem with writing letters is that it takes so much time. Like, I sometimes spend weekends locked up in my office, away from my son and my wife, my family, and I'm just doing treatment plans. I'm actually just doing these letters and I'm putting them in the right slot in the letter. And yes, you have your templates and whatnot, but it still needs some thought and some choreography within the treatment plans, within your pages or Word document or whatever you use. So it takes a lot of time, and it's particularly frustrating if your patient doesn't read the letter, or you put all the effort in and the patient never comes back and you've invested all this time but you could have been doing something else. And that's the biggest issue with letters. So Protrusive, today I'm really excited to share with you something really cool, something that's completely changed the way I present my letters now, or I make my letters now, and I'm so excited to share this. How to write crystal clear treatment plan letters that wow patients and are easy to understand. Welcome, Protrusive, to episode 49 of the Protrusive Dental Podcast. And yes, you finally have a name. So the fans and listeners of the Protrusive Dental Podcast, you are from now on, henceforth, known as the Protrusive. And I just want to do a massive shout out to Carl Walker Finch. That's Carl Walker Finch. Buddy, thank you so much for the suggestion on the Protrusive Dental Community Facebook group. And thanks to everyone who sent in your sort of messages and emails and sort of suggestions. I love them all. I really appreciate you. But that one was Protrusive by Carl Walker Finch. So thank you so much, Carl. The last few weeks have been kind of funny for me. A family member at home has tested positive for COVID, and as soon as we found out, I've been isolating. So I'm coming towards the end of my isolation. Now, if you wonder why I'm suddenly making a lot more content, is because I've been off. So I've been quite productive, but it's also been great to spend more time with my wife and my son and the usual things that you do. It's like it is lockdown for me because I can't leave the home, and I'm it's like what it was in the peak of April, but it's so much better because I kind of know when it's finishing. So it's pretty good. I'm more focused, and it's nice to know exactly when I'm going back to work. So it's not been too bad, and I've made the most of it, I've thought. And thankfully, my family member is completely fine, and we're all in good health, and there's nothing more important than that, because health is wealth. So because I've actually had more time off, I've also been working on the practice rather than in the practice, so I can now work on my systems, how I communicate to patients. So I discovered MakeMeClear, which has been just amazing, and don't worry, we're going to talk all about that today. And it's basically an online platform where you can generate these beautiful looking, very easy to understand, really clear treatment plan letters and reports for your patients. And it's just revolutionized the way I do my dentistry now, how I present my dentistry. Of course, last week with Zach, we talked about treatment plan presentation, but you still need to give a letter for these comprehensive cases. And I found no better way than making letters than with MakeMeClear. And I've got the founder, Dr. Jorge Cardoso, on the show today to talk about the genesis of MakeMeClear. And so the Protrusive Dental Pearl for this episode is check out MakeMeClear. It's makemeclear.com and sign up for the 21-day free trial. We'll be talking in this episode about the mistakes I made, because when I signed up to MakeMeClear initially, you do the 21-day trial, but I didn't actually act until day 16. I had to kind of ask George for an extension, because what happened was that I found that when you actually log into MakeMeClear, you actually have to do the charting of your patient. And I was massively turned off by this. I was like, what? I have to chart the patient again? Like, they're already on my practice management software. Now I have to chart the base chart again and chart the treatment plan again. This is crazy. This is not time efficient, I thought, right? I couldn't be far from the truth, because when you're doing comprehensive treatment planning, It's something that I used to do when I used to work with someone called Dave Winkler, who's a really top guy. Hi, Dave, if you're listening, who's also good buddies with Corey Ferran, top-notch dentist in London. And the way they do their letters, they do a tooth-by-tooth prognosis. So like, upper left 7 is in this situation, upper left 6. So you're counting for every single tooth. And that's like the most ultimate level of treatment planning, or even the most ultimate level of consenting a patient so that they know exactly what's the situation of every single tooth. That's like the gold standard, right? So when I overcame the fact that it's a double chart, and when I actually produced my first plan, I was amazed, my reception team was amazed, and importantly, my patient was amazed. And I've now done about 15, 20 plans now, and I tell you, I can't get tired of these plans. They're just amazing. So I want to share with you exactly the benefits of that. But even if you don't take any action and you don't do the free trial or anything like that, you will learn a lot from Dr. Jorge Cardoso today. He's a very comprehensive dentist based in Portugal, and I kind of ask him questions like, hey, does every single patient need a treatment plan letter, or is it for certain patients? What about photos and simulation photos? Are they a good thing? Are there any downsides to that? And what about when you make a comprehensive treatment plan, you give them a global fee, but then something doesn't go to plan? Tooth fractures, it needs a root canal. How do you account for that? Like, how do you become a better communicator for when things could potentially go wrong? And the fact that we discussed in the episode actually is that the more dentistry you do, the more complex you go, the more things can go wrong. And when they do go wrong, the more catastrophically they can go wrong. So we talk about those aspects of communicating with patients. And of course, me being of a certain ethnicity, I kind of begged Jorge Cardoso for a discount for the Protrusive, and I can say that he caved in. So anyone who signs up for MakeMeClear as a listener of the Protrusive Dental Podcast or as a Protrusive, you can get 25% off by using the coupon code Protrusive, which is so easy to remember. Just make sure you spell it right, because I actually see how people end up on my website, and when on Google, like half the people spell Protrusive wrong, so spell Protrusive correctly, please. So yeah, for those who are interested and they like the software as much as I've loved it, then make sure you don't pay full price. Use the coupon Protrusive for 25% off. That's for lifetime. So I hope you guys enjoy the chat, and I'll catch you in the outro. Jorge Cardoso, welcome to the Protrusive Dental Podcast. How are you?
I'm very fine. Thank you, Jazz. Thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward for a chat with you.
I'm super excited. I'm
on social media, and it's you're really a fun chat to follow.
I really appreciate that, Jorge. But Jorge, today is about speaking about treatment plans, and I think what we're going to discuss, I think, is going to blow everyone's mind, because we've talked about this already, but I'm really, really excited to share this with everyone else, because what's happened since I learned about you and what you have going, and I'm keeping a secret a little bit, I suppose, but it really has blown me away. And I'm going to share my little journey as how I went on a high and then a low and then very much a high again. I've been telling all my sort of colleagues at the moment, but I want to share this on the podcast because this is huge. But the main theme and the title really is how to make crystal clear treatment plans. So we're going to talk about that. But before we get into that, Jorge, please tell the people listening and watching where you work, your background, because I know you spent some time in the UK as well. Give us all that background for us.
Well, my name is Jorge Cardoso. I got my dental degree from Porto University, which is in the north of Portugal. That was in 2002. And in 2005, I went to do a distance learning program at King's College in London. So I did an MClean dent in prosthodontics. So I worked here in Portugal, and I did during 4 years, I did the MClean dent. And then I eventually ended up spending like 1 week a month working in London, in central London. And then eventually I stayed connected to King's College, where I still do some lecturing. And my private practice is mainly comprehensive interdisciplinary dentistry, which is what I love. And this is also one of the reasons why MakeMeClear, the software, was developed. So that's it. And I live in Portugal. My clinic is 5 minutes from the ocean. So it's a lovely place to live and to work.
That's amazing. And I just want to touch on one point you made there. So at one stage, you were doing your MClean dent, but then you were also commuting back to Portugal. Did I catch that right? Yeah, because the
MClean dent at King's College, you can do like a full 2-year full-time or 4-year distance learning. So eventually I had to spend in London about, I would say, 1 month every year during 4 years. So that was manageable. So, and I could not afford not to work. So I had to, because I had just opened my practice. So I was paying the bills of my practice and also doing the distance learning degree. It was very nice because I've met a lot of amazing people that are still friends today, and it was one of the best professional experiences of my life, for sure.
That's great, and I'm glad you gained from that MakeMeClear and were able to balance working in Portugal. Family life, was that a challenge? Balancing family and being away for a month at a time. How was that?
Yeah, it was not that I was that much away, because we went there for chunks for periods of time. So I stayed like in London for a full 2 weeks and came back and stay again for a full 2 weeks. But it was a lot of online work. We had a lot of assignments, and it was challenging because I was just opening my practice. I was at work as an associate for other practices, and I decided to work for myself. And the reason why I decided to work for myself is because, I mean, you know that if you want to do comprehensive interdisciplinary dentistry, you have to be in control of pretty much, I don't say everything, but pretty much the main parts of the treatment. So I wanted to open the practice and invite people to come here and work and do like a lot of brainstorming local to be able to perform the dentistry in terms of the standards that I wanted to. So it was challenging. It was very challenging. It was 4 years extremely challenging because growing a practice, opening a practice, and still studying, it was demanding. But I gained a lot in terms of literature knowledge. I gained a lot from that, and it is something that I still take advantage on today in courses and stuff like that.
And now, from doing that distance learning, does that give you a title of specialist, or does that just give you MakeMeClear Dent Pros? Like, am I right that you need an MRD, or is that not right? Or
that does not give me a title of specialist. It gives me the MakeMeClear Dent, but because I don't practice in London anymore. But if I wanted to, I think that the next step toward being a specialist was much shorter. I'm not exactly how short it was, but it was shorter.
So, well, overall, with your prosthodontics training, and you've already told us that your interests lie in comprehensive dentistry, and it's a topic I've talked about in a couple of episodes before, about how to think comprehensively as a dentist, and when you can diagnose more, you can treat more, and the bottom line of treating more is nothing for me anyway, to do with finances at all. It's to do more dentistry, do more of what you love, to change people's lives and to make a real difference and impact, because single tooth dentistry gets boring.
And to have fun. It's
exactly
more fun. Comprehensive interdisciplinary dentistry is extremely fun. All the nuances, all the engineering, all the biology, all the peri, it's amazing how you have to contact with all the different specialists. And for me, it really lights me up being able to do comprehensive dentistry. Exactly as you said, I mean, single tooth dentistry, it's important as you get out of the college. So first you learn to do a cavity, then you do a crown, then one veneer, then 6 veneers. But all of a sudden you realize that most of the actual patients, you cannot solve the case functionally with only 6 anterior veneers. You need to understand more. Then you need to understand about full mouth. And once you understand about full mouth, you realize there's one big tool that you can use that makes everything even more complicated, which is orthodontics. And most of the situations that we see today in adults, they need some sort of orthodontics. So once you add prosto, ortho, and perio, everything becomes much more interesting and much more fun.
I totally agree. And I think 80% of my patients who I view and give me permission to view them in a comprehensive way and plan them comprehensively and accept a comprehensive plan, 80% of them would benefit from pre-restorative orthodontics. Now, that doesn't mean that 80% will have orthodontics or accept orthodontics. So it's unfortunately a little bit lower than that. But I think the benefit, even if it's minor, 80% of your rehab patients will benefit from orthodontics. So I'm glad you mentioned that. I mean, it's no secret that I love occlusion and learning about these things. And that's why it's called the Protrusive Dental Podcast, obviously. And I think that was, for me, the passport into treating bigger cases, because you need an understanding of how everything works as a system. So that was really important for me. I guess where I am in my journey now is that although I think I'm able to think comprehensively and diagnose broadly, the thing I'm missing that I've already discovered that you have is working more with specialists. I feel as though I try and do a lot myself, and I do think that the next level up for me will be to refer out and have a periodontist who I trust near me, who I can send that work to. And I think to work more multidisciplinary will elevate my level of fun even more.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one of the things that I noticed about you, following you, is that I think that you have the same feeling as myself. Don't you sometimes feel the urge, feel the need to tell other colleagues, look how amazing this is, look how amazing comprehensive dentistry is, because you still see a lot of single tooth dentistry. And number one, it's not the best interest of the patient. And number two, it's much less interesting than comprehensive dentistry. And as you were saying, in terms of teamwork, well, it's difficult. I have to say that in the early years, especially when I wanted to do my first comprehensive cases, it was difficult. And you really have to be really detailed in terms of communication with other specialists. So my advice to you is start to find a team that you can feel comfortable in communicating. It doesn't have to be the best prosthodontist in the world. It doesn't have to be the best orthodontist in the world. You just need to have a group of people that want to grow together and then want to have fun. That's it. Because if you want to grow together, if you want to have fun, you will eventually be better. You will, of course, do some mistakes. You will learn with the mistakes, and you will get better and better and better. I think if you find open communication, I think that's the way to go. I think communication is the key, because everything else, and it's also very important to have people that are open-minded in terms of feedback. I mean, let's say I'm an orthodontist, and I say, look, hey, Jazz, I think that you should do this way. And don't mind, I don't want you to take it wrong for me being able to decide some prosthodontic decisions as well. I don't mind that you also give me some orthodontic advice, because there's lots of ego in dentistry. And you want to find people that can break that ego barrier and that they can learn with each other. That would be my advice.
The whole time you were saying that last bit, I was thinking of that episode I did recently with Richard Porter about emotional intelligence. And when you're working in any teams and successful teams, that's what you need to do. And what you said was being able to take criticism, being able to give criticism, knowing that the other person is going to take it the right way. But we're digressing a little bit, because right now, and I love that little background story we just had. It was a really fun exchange there. But I want to talk about developing as a comprehensive dentist. When you start diagnosing more, we need better ways to communicate with our patients. And I just felt at one stage in my career that, hey, you know what? As I'm becoming more comprehensive, as I'm diagnosing more, as I'm communicating more verbally with the patient, I'm like, hey, this patient kind of needs something to go home and read, right? Because I can't just tell them everything and expect to remember it. And a lot of the buying decisions, and I hate using that term, but it's true, for someone to want to spend X amount of money with you to look after themselves, even if it's like just biological dentistry. It doesn't have to be aesthetic dentistry. Even if it's just biological dentistry, they need to sometimes just think about it and have some time to consider things over. So then I started to do letters, which I thought were important. So, and the way I used to do it was like, if I have a patient and I want to find out how you did it and how you do it now in terms of at which point do you go for letters and which point is your threshold? Like, do you have a threshold? Like, for example, if today a patient comes in and they just need one crown and a filling, I'm okay with that. Hey, you need a crown, you need a filling, and I can have that chat in the chair, and I'm confident that I've given them a good value and understanding, and they can retain that information and get some degree of consent as well from that. But when it gets to a certain level where it becomes a couple more crowns, changing a little bit more than that, maybe definitely if there's some periodontal surgery involved, when it gets, the layers of complexity get more and more, at that point, I then need a letter. Now, what is your sort of protocol with that? And what do you advise to general dentists? Should they give a letter to every single patient for every single treatment plan? How do you do it?
Well, that's a very interesting question, because you mentioned something that most of the dentists, including myself, feel a little uncomfortable, which is the financial part. Because dentistry is a branch of medicine, right? But most of dentistry is done privately. So if you want to do comprehensive dentistry, either you want it or not, even if you are not making that much profit for the dentist, you have a lot of materials. I mean, the lab bill is usually very high. So the fact that comprehensive dentistry equals very high cost, it does not mean that you are making a lot of money, but you have to face one very important issue, which is we are talking about a large amount of money. So if you are doing, my threshold, to be very direct to your question, is once the patient needs to spend more than $1,000 or $2,000, depends on your own practice, I give them a very comprehensive letter for treatment plan. In this case, MakeMeClear. If it is a single tooth dentistry, less than 1,000, less than 2,000, what we have in our practice is we have some pre-printed sheets where we have a list of treatments, restorations, crown. We just fill it there. We just fill the total. On the back of that sheet, there are some guarantees of the practice policy, some important information, and that's it. But once you go after 1,000 or 2,000, or even if you just think it's a difficult patient, you want some more information, you just go for a comprehensive letter. So my threshold is a financial threshold. And I think it's very important that we as dentists, we should not be making dentistry for money. I think that's the worst motivation that you can have. You will be miserable if you do that. But dentistry is an expensive profession. It's an expensive work. Even if you don't make that much money for yourself, you will still have to charge a lot of patients because of staff, because of equipment, because of lab. I mean, there's a whole lot of issues involved. But you have to be able to deal with that situation. And another very important hint that we'll talk later, which is I never try to sell anything, never. My thing is information. It's never about selling dentistry. It's about providing information with transparency.
Absolutely. And I agree that now I've reached a stage, a bit like you actually, where it is a little bit about a threshold of at what point they're spending above a level that I think actually it is a significant investment into their health, and therefore to have some written information to just make it more professional overall, and the communication being crystal clear is important in that patient journey, I think. So I agree with you. You also touched on a patient who may be a difficult or a funny type patient, and sometimes there are some patients who just, regardless of what they're having, like a simple procedure, they just want all the information, their status of their health, and I completely see that as well, and I see those patients, and I think those patients also benefit with a letter, and also that can sometimes double up as consent as well, but we're going to touch a little bit on that later. But okay, you mentioned MakeMeClear, so let's talk about MakeMeClear. So for those people who don't know, MakeMeClear is your baby. It's George's baby, and it's basically an online platform where, and I'm saying it as a user, you're the creator, but as a user, I see it as an online platform where I can make beautiful treatment plans and letters to my patients who need comprehensive dentistry. Now, I have done it a bit like you. So far, on the 8 patients I've used it on, I've used it for those who need a little bit more than just one filling. Okay, they need some work, and they find that so much value from that. So, to share some experiences about what happened in the first patient I started to use it on, it was a disaster, George. Okay, because what happened is that I log in, because you do the 21-day free trial, right? I log in, and my biggest barrier was, oh my God, I have to chart this patient's dentition again, right? And on the one hand, there was like a devil on my shoulder saying, oh, this is rubbish, why do you have to chart again? But on the other shoulder, there was an angel, because it reminded me of someone I used to work with, Dr. David Winkler. Someone, if you're in the UK, you may know Dave Winkler, very charismatic guy. I used to work with him in Windsor, and he was very important in my journey to comprehensive dentistry. And when he got me to write letters for my patients, this is what he made me do, George, okay? He made me take a screenshot of the exact software charting before and after the plan, okay, which is like the base chart and the final chart, which actually visually doesn't really make much sense to patients, but is there. But then what I did is upper left 8 dash, this tooth is in okay condition. Next one, upper left 7, missing tooth. Next tooth, upper left 6, this tooth has a large MOD amalgam, it is leaking a bit. So every single tooth by tooth diagnosis was in that letter, okay? And I thank him for that, because it really made me think like, wow, I'm being very clear, a little bit too much. But because it reminded me of that, it showed me the MakeMeClear is an easier way to do that, because it's all visual, and I was able to chart. Then I was able to put my treatment plan, and then I clicked the generate report, and wow, the magic happened. So the first patient I use this on, and I didn't want to talk about finances, but this is important. It's a significant 5-figure sum, okay? And it just so happened that I saw this patient for a new patient exam, and I thought, okay, I'll use MakeMeClear. And then you email me, how's it going? I was like, I haven't used it, I have to double chart, right? But anyway, I did it, okay? And the patient loved it, okay? Patient loved that plan, and she's going ahead. I'm really excited to start her phase of treatment. It's a full mouth rehabilitation. I might have sent you it, actually. I'm not sure. And then that was my first experience. And then the second, that was at one practice. Now, George, at the second practice, here's what happened, right? This was for four crowns, 2 anteriors, 2 posteriors, okay? And he's been like he knows he's got these 2 root-filled premolars done by my endodontist, and he needs these crowns, and he knows. He says, oh yeah, I've got a big tax bill in January, I'll do it. Anyway, 4 crowns he needs, okay? His post-crown recently came out. He needs it all done, and I made it for him. When I emailed my reception team to email the patient, okay, then 2 days later, I had a message from my principal. Okay, let me read it out to you. So the patient messaged my principal saying, Hap, so my principal's name is Hap Gill. He says, Hap, I have just received a treatment plan from my practice and told Debbie that I have never felt so well cared, treated and informed in my life with any other dentist. And unfortunately, I have a long experience. You are brilliant. Thank you, and thank Jazz too, please. Okay. And this is the feedback that I got. Okay. Now, George, before I let you talk a bit about your software and stuff, let me tell you the funny thing that happened thereafter. So Hap sends me this feedback on our practice group chat. Okay. And then I make a video. I say, hey guys, you know what? I use this new software. It's called MakeMeClear. I think it's amazing. Okay. And then Hap calls me and says, okay, when you sent that letter, okay, it was like 16 pages, and it sounds very daunting, but it's all very visual, right? Yeah. The reception team, they went crazy. Everyone was like, oh my God, have you seen this plan that Jazz has sent? They were all talking to each other, and then they told my principal, have you seen this plan? Have you seen this plan for the patient? And Hap was like, no, I haven't. Send it to me. And he was thinking, oh my God, what am I doing? Open heart surgery, like this is crazy. And you know what? My principal looked at the plan and he thought, this is different. He doesn't do it like this. He is more text heavy. It was very comprehensive. And he thought, okay, let's try it. Let's send it. And so the rest is history. You know, the patient loved it. And that's been amazing. So although I had to double chart, I think for me to help me treatment plan and to present something that's really valuable for the patient has been amazing. So really the question here is firstly, praise for MakeMeClear. I love it already. And 2 is, what were your struggles that led you to make MakeMeClear?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned what David Winkler works at Windsor, right? I was in his office when they were working.
Yeah, I worked there with him in Windsor, yeah.
And you know, I did exactly the same thing. I would go to my management software. I did a screenshot on the before. I did a screenshot on the treatment plan, and then I would just attach it to the Word document and then send it to the patient. The problem is that I was losing a lot of time, but I was still doing the comprehensive treatment plans. But I was losing a lot of time, and that's when I think it was like in December 2016, something like it. It was like three days before the end of the year. I decided, look, I have to do something. So I started drawing and designing a mock-up in Keynote for MakeMeClear, and then we just talked to some coders, and we just did it. That's it. And I was just basically scratching my own itch. I never thought that would become a business or a software. I never thought about that. But what happens is that in terms of user feedback, there's a lot of the reluctancy with the double charting. There is, and some of the dentists just stop that. They say, well, that's not for me. But what I find is that the dentists that are taking the higher value from MakeMeClear are the dentists that are doing more comprehensive dentistry. Or let's say it in other words, the dentists that understand that in order for them to be able to perform comprehensive dentistry, they have to communicate well. I usually say this: if you're going to buy, I don't know if you like cars, I'm not a big fan of cars, but if you are going to buy a Fiat, the brochure looks one thing. If you are going to buy a Porsche or a Ferrari or a Mercedes, the brochure is different. And this is what MakeMeClear is all about. It's being able to deliver a treatment plan that is professional, transparent, elegant, and easy to understand. That's it.
I like your analogy of cars there, because I actually had that same thought. Like when you go to a car dealership and you're looking at an expensive car, they send you home with all this beautiful documentation, right? So when I started being more comprehensive, making bigger treatment plans, I thought, hey, I can't send my patient home with no letter. I need to explain. So every orthodontic patient of mine will get a letter. Every rehab patient for sure will get a letter. And MakeMeClear has just elevated my letter. I don't think I'll ever be able to switch back to my usual letters again, because I really enjoy the visual plans that are made. And hopefully, as I'm saying this, for those watching, I'll be able to have some B-roll video on showing some clips from the behind the scenes. I've talked about the software, and I want to touch on it later again, so people know how much I've fallen in love with it. I'm telling my principals, my ex-principals, so everyone's checking it out now as well. But I want to ask you next is, even within the software as well, you can help me. When you have a patient who has a couple of options. Like, let's say option one is full mouth rehabilitation using crowns and bridges. Option two is that with implants maybe. Or the other one is, hey, you know what? We're just going to conform to your worn dentition and just make you a chrome denture. And it's a compromise approach, but it's still a valid approach, right?
Yeah.
In terms of letters, how do you do it? Like, would you put all three options in there, or would you put your recommended one and then put the other two in passing? Or just want to understand in your world, the treatment planning, how is that done? How is that handled?
That's a very good question, because it was exactly because of that we have in MakeMeClear, we have added the option of doing stages. So basically what we do, you can use stages in order to stage the treatment. So these are the basic treatments, these are the functional treatments, these are the provisionals, and these are the finals. So you can do sub-staging and have subtotals in terms of the values there. And you can decide to hide or to show the prices of each stage. And you can also decide to hide or show the overall price of the whole treatment. So you can do it in two ways. One of the ways is you can do like stage one, but instead of naming it stage one, you just name option one, and you just describe that. And you can name it option two, and then you just hide. You decide not to show the price of the whole treatment plan. So basically, on the title you say option A, veneers, and on the description note, so these are veneers. The difference is this, this, and this. And option B, these are resins, and the advantages and the disadvantages are like this. So basically the patient then will be able to see option A and option B, option A the price and option B the price. Now, this works very well if the change of the option A or option B does not make very significant changes on the chart. Because as you were saying, one thing is implants and crowns. If you want to do that, what you can do, one very important tool that you have, you can just duplicate the plan. So basically you do the charting, you do the option A. So one plan is option A only. So then you go back to the back office, to the homepage, and you just duplicate that plan. You rename it and you just keep the diagnosis and you only change the treatment plan. So then you are sending two documents. But usually what I do is I always try to make everything in one document, unless it is a very different treatment plan. So you can do it both ways. Yeah. The problem of implementing everything in one treatment plan is that when you are changing the charts because of implants versus crowns, you will be then presenting 4 different charts, which from the patient's perspective, I think it gets confused. So in that way, it's better to duplicate the first plan and then just work on the treatments and leave the diagnosis. I hope this makes sense to you. I don't know if I explained it.
It made perfect sense, because I've used the software. So I didn't know that you could hide the price per phase. So for those listening right now, and I encourage you all to use the 21-day free trial for MakeMeClear, just to see for yourself, have a play around. When you do your charting and then you're making the plan, and then you select bridge, you select crown, you select fillings or whatever, the way I have been doing is phase 1 is like, basic restorative, your cores and stuff like that, the provisional crowns. Then phase 2, and I say, 6 to 12 months later, I will do my final crowns. And phase 3 is like a splint or something, So I'll make 3 phases. But what you've taught me now is that you can hide the price in each phase and hide the overall price as well. And now it makes sense to me that you can, within one document, present 3 different options, because you don't show the final altogether price. Because what you don't want is 3 different options and give one big global fee, adding it all together, because that's not accurate. So that makes sense to me. So I'm hoping people who can visualize that, it will make so much more sense to you if you go to MakeMeClear.com and sign up for the 21-day free trial and just have a play around to see what we're talking about. But that makes sense to me. So really what I heard was you like to make it all under one plan ideally, although there are some challenges if the charting is different, which makes sense to me as well. And then therefore the option to duplicate the plan, it's genius. Fantastic.
I mean, there's also one thing that you can always do. For example, let's say I have basic treatments on phase 1, and then phase 2 is different. It has option A and option B. That way, what happens is that you may hide the overall price, but you can also generate the overall price, and then you can also edit the PDF outside MakeMeClear. And then what happens is, so your price will not be 5,000, it will be from 2,000 to 5,000, depending whether you choose for phase 2, option 1 or option 2. But it's very important, Jazz, that on the description of the stages, make sure that the patient clearly sees that's option. So option A, veneers, option B, resins, option A, implants, option B, crown. It's very important to place the word option because they want to understand it's optional.
That's another gem there. So, because obviously I have Adobe, the software, the full paid one or whatever. So I'll be able to open the generated treatment plan and actually do a little edit myself, which it makes so much sense. I can't believe I didn't think of it. But yeah, I like that. So you then give a broad range of fees, because it obviously will depend ultimately on what they choose. So thank you so much for that, Jem. Within MakeMeClear, and I mean, all my treatment plans, even before MakeMeClear, had patient photos on there. So I like the fact that you can add a document with a photo template and you're able to have these like sort of grids where you can upload your photo. That was amazing. But just general treatment planning advice, do you provide smile simulations in your treatment plans, and who do you use? Do you use a company? Do you do it yourself? Tell us more about that, and do you give any sort of disclaimers with that?
Yeah, so basically what I want to add as much images as possible, because I think that patients, they want a combination. Most of the patients, they want a combination of charts, simple to read text with the appropriate pricing, and also images, especially of their own case, of occlusal images. I mean, crowding. Most of the people they have no idea of the amount of crowding that they have or the condition of some of the feelings on the backside of the mouth. So that is very important. Also, do I use smile simulations? Absolutely, yes. I use smile simulations. If you notice on one of the templates, one of the image templates of MakeMeClear, there's a template for smile simulations, face before and after, and smile before and after. And there's a preloaded message that says that this is just a simulation. Final results can vary depending on each case. And which program do I use? I use Smile Cloud from Florin Kofar. It's an amazing software that you can usually use smile designs for the before and after. So I use that on reductive cases. So let's say you want to do some reductive veneers or you want to do some reductive crowns. So you cannot do an additive mock-up. But whenever I can, I prefer to use a mock-up. Sometimes I do it directly in the mouth. Sometimes I just give impressions to the dental technician and then he does the mock-up. But I love to use mock-ups for the patient to do videos before and after. Of course, videos you cannot add on MakeMeClear. You can add images. But sometimes I send MakeMeClear and I also send a link to show the patient the videos that we have done. It's also important that you have to take into account local regulations in terms of privacy and stuff like that. Even though MakeMeClear is a software that is approved with the regulation and everything, what you do with the document, of course, you have to be as careful as with every other document that has some patient information. You have to look at local regulations, of course.
Thank you very much. And you talked about the 2D simulation, which obviously I found out you're a fan of, but you also talked about the 3D, which is the mock-up in the mouth. But I noticed that it's very interesting that it sounds like in some cases, for the additive cases, you do the 3D mock-up, take their videos and photos, and then send the treatment plan, MakeMeClear. Tell us about your workflow. Do you get the patient to cover your wax up at least? Let's talk a little bit about those, staging of when you do it, because it's called a motivational mock-up because it's highly motivational. So it makes sense to do it first. Then it's a genius idea to send them the video. It makes even more sense to me that, hey, to use an app or something to get the two videos before and after side by side. That's a pretty cool thing to do as well. But if you have that information at the same time as sending them the plan, that's a good idea. But how do you do it? What's your workflow?
So that's a very, very interesting question that I get asked a lot by students. And it depends a lot on your own personality. Well, let me give you an example. Some of the most outgoing personalities in terms of dentistry, they just tell this to the patient. The patient comes in for the first time and they say, well, I would like to do something. I'm not even going to charge you for that. So basically, it's some impressions or oral scans, and basically they ask dental technician to do some aesthetic mock-up, and in most of the cases they have an agreement with the dental technician that they will not be spending too much time on the wax-up, on the digital wax-up, because it's not a functional wax-up, it's just some buccal veneers. And then you just do a key and you just do a silicone index, and on the second appointment you place it in the mouth. And then you start talking about treatment planning and money. Well, I think it can be very effective. I think it's mostly respectable. But I think for me, for my own personality, it's a little bit salesy, you know? I mean, it's not very, I prefer to do the following. I prefer to ask them to tell the patient, look, the patient comes in for the first appointment. On the second appointment, I will not charge it. I will not charge it. And what I will do is as well, what I am thinking is about this, and this. On the second appointment, first I talk about the treatment plan, and then I place the mock-up and then do the recording. I don't want to be talking about, yeah.
Well, I just want to check, maybe I've misinterpreted. So you will see the first patient for the comprehensive diagnosis, a new patient examination. Then the second appointment, is that to explain their treatment plan, or is it purely for the mock-up?
To explain the treatment plan, and I also show them the mock-up. And on that second appointment, I assume the costs of the mock-up. But remember, Jazz, that mock-up is only an aesthetic mock-up. What I don't like to do is, the patient comes in on the second appointment, they get placed a mock-up, and then they just start talking about money with the patient. Oh, in order to get this result, it's this. So I want to be able to, I want to provide more information. I want the patient to understand why I'm going to do a mock-up for them to realize what we are talking about. I don't want to place something in the mouse and then just start off, because I think it's a little bit awkward. I don't want to have, I would not feel very comfortable to have someone placing something inside my mouth without explaining me why that will happen. I understand the emotional dentistry part of that. I understand that, but for my own personality, I don't think it does work. So to sum it up, I think it depends a lot on your own philosophy and personality. There's a lot of combinations. You can do it directly without spending money from the dental technician, but spending share time, and it improves your skills with composites. You can do it indirectly in the lab, but then you have to negotiate with the lab. Tell, look, I want you to be able to do me mock-ups, static mock-ups, only for the 6 or 7 or 10 anterior teeth, but those are only aesthetic. So let's agree on what's a reasonable fee so that I can either charge or not charge the patient, but also be vulnerable to the fact that they will not accept the treatment plan and I might lose that money. So there's no way I'm going to do a functional mock-up, a functional full mouth mock-up, without the patient having accepted the treatment. So if I do a mock-up with lab costs, it has to be reasonable and it's only aesthetic. And you can also use only 2D. If you don't feel comfortable about 3D, you can only use 2D. I think it depends a lot on your own personality, on the philosophy of your own practice. What I never do, I never charge the patient on the second appointment. And I also know, I don't know if it happens a lot in the UK or not, but here in Portugal, there's a lot of dentists and clinics that are doing treatment plans for free, which is something completely for free, which is something that I don't agree. Because I think that when you are doing something for free, you do it very fast and you are not going to do it well. It's impossible to do comprehensive dentistry, a good treatment plan, doing it for free, because you'll be losing a lot of time. It's almost impossible. So it depends
I
on
agree
your
with
personality.
You. Absolutely. I agree with you about a comprehensive exam. It requires so much energy and time and expertise that, yes, it shouldn't be offered free. But I just want to home in on the real amazing gem that you shared, which is a real takeaway that I learned just now from what you said as well, is to negotiate with your lab. In a non-confrontational way. You know, you're probably buddies. A lot of us listening are on very good terms with your lab, and just explain what you're doing, why you're doing it, and get them to see the benefit that, hey, this may improve case acceptance, and guess who you're going to be doing the indirect work with? That laboratory, obviously. So I think there's a good relationship win-win with the lab. Like, they can give you a significant discount on an incisor-facial mock-up additive. So it's not a functional. They don't need to worry about the occlusion. Just make it look nice so they can clip on, if you like, or just with the Bisacryl. But also it's something to show the patient on the day as well, which I think is genius. But on that second appointment, when you're about to place the silicon key, have you already made your MakeMeClear plan at that point, right? Okay. And then you will follow up with the plan, with the videos maybe from that appointment.
Yes, and I showed them the plan and I said, look, there's one very important sentence that I use all the time. And it relates a lot to the question, well, should I talk about money in the beginning? Should I talk about money in the end of the explanation? For many years, I talked about the money before explaining the treatment plan. And some people accuse me, well, that does not make sense. You have to talk about You have to go through the treatment plan. But sometimes it takes 10 minutes to go through the treatment plan. And some patients are just there, just waiting. So I think there's a balance. So I usually say, well, you have ideally what you should do in your mouth, it's almost the price of a car. So the treatment plan I'm going to present you as an approximate price of this. And look, I am not here selling you anything. My goal here is purely giving you information. So my goal today here is providing you accurate information. And in these sorts of cases, sometimes I even advise patients to go for a second opinion. So I'm going to give you all the information, what is happening in your mouth, what will happen if nothing is done, and what can we do, and what would be my proposed treatment plan. And then you can decide at home, think about it, and if you have any doubt, just call me. So now, and after that, I go through treatment plan. So basically what I do, I lower the pressure, I lower the stress levels. So if I am on the patient's shoes, the patient will say, well, this guy's not selling me anything. I may accept it, I may not accept it, but let me listen to what he has to say. Because all the pressure, all the expectations go down, okay? So we can have a conversation, a transparent conversation like two normal people. Because business should always be in a win-win situation. And I don't want to scare the patient for 10 minutes talking about this, and then, well, now it's 20,000. So I think it's better to talk it in the beginning, but I accept the critics that said, no, you should talk it in the end. And once I say that, well, now I'm going to place in your mouth something. I want to do a short video. If you have a studio, do it with a studio. If you have even a cell phone, is okay. Just record with a cell phone, the before and after, place it on a keynote, export it the before and after, and send it together with the treatment plan. I also print the treatment plan and deliver to them. Some patients, they don't want the paper, of course. Some patients want the paper. Some patients, I think it's important what you said in the beginning. They want to have something that they can take home and show their families. Look, I went to this dentist. What do you think about this? Do you think I should spend this amount of money? Well, let me see it. So sometimes they, in the evening, they are two together reading the treatment plan because it's like you said, one of the reasons that you click on the report and everything generates itself because there are some automated descriptions that appear. I mean, if you lose a tooth, this is what's happening. And this is all automated, but you can also customize it. So I think for me, the best way is I charge the first appointment. I collect the data. The second appointment, I will not charge. I have an agreement with the lab. In some cases, it is possible to do the 3D. Some other cases, reductive is only the 2D. But I try to play around with that. And in my opinion, even if you spend some money on the WhatsApp, on the digital WhatsApp, at the end of the day, in a statistic way, you will always be benefiting from that financially, always. Because the amount of treatment plans accepted by your patients will absolutely, in my opinion, if you are competent and if you are honest, they will improve and you will have more and more patients do it. And another very, very important thing, even if they don't do it, because they may not be financially prepared to do that, they will advise you. They will tell their friends, and look at this guy, very professional, very elegant treatment plans, and there will be lots of referrals from families.
I 100% agree. I mean, that little message that I read out from the patient, my first patient at the second practice where I work at 1 day a week, and look at the message that he sent to us saying that, he felt so cared for. And totally, whenever someone mentions, hey, I'm looking for a dentist, he will think, hey, I know a very comprehensive dentist who is a very good communicator. But I just want to highlight 3 important things I just learned from what you said. Okay, I want to just highlight it for the listeners again, because I think they're just gold, what you said, basically. A is that I didn't know that within MakeMeClear that you can edit the bits. So, for example, for those who haven't used MakeMeClear yet, when you do the diagnosis for missing teeth, I didn't know you could edit the diagnosis. So I'm going to totally go and edit the different diagnoses in my own language, my own style. So oh my God, I'm so excited to do that. I sound like a massive geek, I know. That's one. Number 2 is I like the fact that the way you communicate money to the patient is that you explain to them upfront in a way that they can bring their guard down. Because if they're worried, oh my God, how much is it going to cost? How much is it going to cost? And you're telling them all this stuff, they're not taking it in. But if you can tell them, and I love the way that you told them, you anchored it to a car, right? And then, of course, a car can cost £800, it can cost £80,000, right? So I like the anchor because it gives you a range as well. Like a car can be anything. So I like that. It gives them an anchor to work with, but also allows them to just get that out their system and then listen to what you have to say. So those are three beautiful things that I got from you there. So thanks so much for sharing that. The next question, George, I have is, and we're down to our last two questions. The next question is, the more comprehensive dentistry I do, the more can go wrong during the treatment. So for example, no, it's true, right? Like imagine you're doing like 8 crowns, maybe one will need a root canal halfway through, maybe one, as you remove the core, everything will just break and you find out, hang on, this tooth is actually unrestorable or whatever, right? Like this happens, it's part of dentistry, it's part of comprehensive care. A, how do you communicate that to the patients? And B, just out of interest, do you absorb that cost when something goes wrong? How do you like to do it? Because I know, like one of my principals, Hap, he won't mind me saying, very comprehensive dentist, does lots of big treatment plans and is very much a full mouth dentist. The way he does it is that he sets one fee, and I really like one sentence he writes in the letter, which I'm probably going to automate and introduce into my MakeMeClear now that I know that we can automate it so much, which is that, hey, you know what, I'm giving you this global fee, and just understand that if any little hiccups come along the way, don't worry, that this fee is to cover you anything you might need, except an implant like that, for example. And I like that way because it gives the patient the peace of mind that you're going to do everything. But how do you do it, George?
Well, I like what you said because there's one advice that I wish I knew that when I started comprehensive dentistry is that the worst thing that can happen to you is to start to be successful in comprehensive dentistry. That's the worst thing, because success in comprehensive dentistry brings a lot of complexity. Exactly what you said. I saw one presentation from Paul O'Malley from the States, and he said that single tooth dentistry is proportional. I mean, what you gain depends a lot on the amount, and the problems depends on the amount of work that you do. Comprehensive dentistry, once you increase the vertical dimension, once you place ortho, it's exponential. This means that the amount of, if you are doing 10 crowns in comprehensive dentistry with an increasing vertical dimension, new guidance, etc., you cannot charge 10 times 10 crowns. You can't do that. You have to charge provisionals, you have to charge the articulators, you have to charge the trines, you have to make yourself safe. And what I do, I always paint the worst case scenario. In most cases, it won't happen, but I place the worst case scenario. If there is a tooth that is doubtful, okay, so I also place in the plan, look, we may eventually have to place an implant on this teeth with an additional cost of X. But if I have not mentioned that, I absorb the cost. I always tell the patient, look, I would not like to play a game that someone changes the rules of the game in the middle of the game. I don't like that. So I will not change the rules of the game. So this is the amount. And from then on, up to this amount, up to this worst case scenario, we will absorb everything if anything happens. And I also talk about warranties. I guarantee my work for some period of time. I think this is controversial, but for example, I give my ceramics a 3 to 5 year guarantee, depends on the functional risk. I give my implants a 5-year guarantee as long as the patient is coming for the maintenance. I give my restorations a 2-year guarantee, and I do it for every single patient. I understand that dentistry is medicine and each person is a person, but you have to be able to talk their language. They have to feel comfortable with you. And in the end, one thing I always tell my team, if you are doing a remake of a restoration, it's the best marketing that you can do. If it's within the guarantee, it's the best marketing maneuver. And you should be doing that with a very happy face. So we do the restoration, very happy face, you'll have a loyal customer for the rest of your life.
I like that mindset, because this whole thing about whenever you're produced with a challenge, you should see it as an opportunity. So the challenge is the patients broke your crown after a year, but this is an opportunity to really wow a patient and show them that you care, and then they will sing and shout from the top of the world for a second time, hopefully, that, hey, you know what, this happened, but they looked after me so well. Like all the best customer service places obviously have that. And I like what you touched there about you will cover everything up to the point of the things that you mentioned in the letter. So yes, for example, my principal, he mentions about, hey, you know, should anything go wrong, don't worry, we got you. But then I think if you mention things like, but if for this dubious tooth, should you need a root canal, I want you to budget for this amount because in case it needs it. And it's something I learned from Lincoln Harris as well, actually, that actually every deep filling, every crown he does, he'll always give the fee for the root canal to go alongside it. It really, just like you said, gives the worst case scenario. So I think that's a great answer. So now we're down to the last question before we just have a little bit of chit chat, which is, what are the ways that you used to present treatment plans before MakeMeClear? And what's the number one thing that patients have told you since you designed MakeMeClear and now you're using that?
Well, I think the number of questions and hesitation from people has dropped dramatically. I mean, I have received letters from dentists, that users of MakeMeClear say, well, I've had a lawyer that called me, said, look, I have never seen such a well-written dental contract as I've seen you, because lawyers, they are very sensitive to letters and stuff like that. If you present a comprehensive treatment plan to a lawyer, say, this guy really knows what he's doing. And the amount of respect that you get from patients is huge. Like I said, even if they don't accept it, they will refer you. Absolutely, you will be referred to. I have no doubt. So what was happening before and what is happening now? First of all, I feel my stress level is high up until the moment that I do the treatment plan and send to the patient. Once that happens, that stress lows. Why? Because after that, I only need one thing, execution. So the most difficult thing is doing the map. If I know the map, if the patient knows the map and he accepts it, then we just have to execute it. But the level of stress diminishes. Also, one thing very important is that with MakeMeClear, everybody, especially if you divide the treatment in phases, everybody knows what they are doing in which stage of the treatment plan, which is something very, very important.
This is so good, because now that I've been making the letters and I've been breaking into phases, I've been thinking, hey, when I come to do the treatment, this is going to help my nurse so much know what I'm doing, what to set up for each appointment, if you like. And also, when you're busy in practice and you see so many patients, and then Mrs. Smith is coming, she's, a more comprehensive plan. And you're like, wait, what are we doing today? Which side are we doing? Where are we? And when you have it documented in a letter, like the one that you can produce with MMC, it's not just for the patient, it's actually benefit for you as a dentist, because you can be like, okay, we're on phase 2, yes, somewhere around the middle. So that's a really great point you raised there. And I think this might be a good point to say to those listening, is that please do the trial for the MakeMeClear and see for yourself, but don't make the same mistake I did, because the mistake I made was I got scared by the double charting. But I want everyone to see it as an opportunity to A, be as comprehensive as possible, and B, when you do the charting there, and really it gets quicker and quicker. I'm on like patient number 8 now, and I'm pretty quick now, because once you know what you're clicking and stuff on the left and you apply it to the right, it becomes quicker and quicker. And the second thing is that when you're doing the treatment plan, you're doing the whole thinking process. So every patient you get who you treat comprehensively, you have to sit and think. And you have to think, okay, am I doing a crown or a filling? Okay, how much am I raising the vertical dimension? If you do all the hard work then, just like you said, when you're producing a letter and you produce this beautiful letter, just like you said, the rest is just actually carrying the dentistry out. So the hard work is done, and it's part of making treatment plans, and it's part of communicating with your patients. So everyone, don't be scared of the double charting. Get good at it, get slick at it. And my plan for the future is to teach my nurse how to do it, because to be fair, part of my workflow is when I take my full photos, sometimes when I'm speaking to the patient, my nurse has already rotated the photos and she is now doing the charting already on the system, because I can check if there's caries and whatnot already. Medical legally, the charting she can be doing from the photos basically. And I think to use the MMC visual format, I'm confident that my nurse will be able to do my charting for me as well. Then I just need to go and make the plan. So everyone, don't be scared of the double charting. Use it on your patient, generate the report, send in that report, and just, see how amazing it is. Now, George, you've been very kind to offer those who listen to Protrusive Dental Podcast a discount. I really appreciate that. So the code is Protrusive, and that will get them 25% off. Is that right, George?
Yeah. If you can use the 21-day free trial. And we also have a special offer for you being such a kind friend for MakeMeClear. And if you use the Protrusive coupon, you'll have a 25% discount either on the monthly or on the yearly plan.
I mean, that is amazing. I mean, put it this way, the first patient that I gave the plan to, and she's accepted. And since then, I've given 7 other plans. And one, I got the feedback. And obviously in 2021, he's going ahead with that plan as well. So if you just get one comprehensive, how much is one comprehensive case worth to you when you get that approved? Because maybe the difference was the letter and how good it looked and how professional it looked, but also saving the stress going in the future in terms of following where you are in the journey. I think it's amazing value. And honestly, George, thanks so much. 25% is a massive discount. So I really appreciate that. So the code again is Protrusive, and it's only for those who listen to Protrusive on the podcast. George, the other thing that I actually watched one of your recordings on YouTube that you did with another podcaster, I think, and you guys talked about, well, actually he mentioned it, that if you have MakeMeClear as a principle, as a practice, then all the associates, all the dentists, all the specialists within that practice can use the same account, which for me, like, you're doing yourself out of a lot of business, a lot of money, I think, personally. But I think, wow, it makes it even more, like, whatever comparatively low fee it is, when you break it up against 5 dentists using it and using it consistently, I mean, that's amazing. Thank you for making that happen, I guess.
So the thing is that you will only be limited by the logo that you place on the front page. If the logo is the same logo in the practice, I mean, you can use it for as many dentists, as many users, everybody can use it.
What I'm doing at the moment, George, is as I'm an associate, right? I'm an associate at 2 clinics, okay? So the way I use it is I have my own dentist logo, okay?
Yes,
and then what you're able to do within there is I'm able to change the address of the practice as I send out the plan. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. But I can totally see it. Like, if, for example, if tomorrow one of my practices took on MakeMeClear, which I think Hat probably will, because he was amazed by the feedback he got from the patient, then of course the Richmond Dentist logo will be on there, and then all the other dentists, all the 4 associates that we are can use that as well. So it's a really great deal in that way, I think. So that makes sense.
Yeah, you're spot on, exactly. We have users that are dentists that are working several practices. They use it for their own. So they just change the address of the practice. They have their own logo as a dentist. And we also have practices that all of the dentists that work in the practice use MakeMeClear with only one account. So you can use it both ways, basically.
Brilliant.
And you can access it anytime, simultaneously. You can access it as long as you have a desktop that you can access with internet. You don't need to install anything. It's all done through the browser, so it's very easy to use. We always wanted to make it simple to use. We don't want to overcomplicate, because there's a fine balance between the features and simplicity. And we always strive for the simplicity, because sometimes the more complex things are, and sometimes they don't really add that much. You want to have something that can really make your life easier.
George, once a patient's accepted a treatment plan, right? And if it's comprehensive dentistry, what I like to do is every phase, I like to send them like a table almost. Appointment 1, what I'm doing, how long it is, and then the next appointment, what should the space be between that? So it takes me a bit of time, but I do it for the patient, but I do it for me and my nurse as well, because we know exactly how long the appointment is, what we're doing, and I can follow that journey along as well. A, do you do this for your patients? And B, do you see any value in that? Or do you think I'm wasting my time? Or is there any other way that you like to do it?
I think this is you have to, what the patient wants is practical information. So what will he want? He wants to know how long it will take the appointment, especially if it's a long appointment. For example, I say, well, these are the basic treatments. This is period and some restorations. If you want, I placed on the descriptions of the stage, if you want, we can make this in a full morning or a full afternoon, we can take care of everything. And then let's say, for example, we place the implants on phase 1, surgery. Phase 2, crowns over the implants. So what we say on phase 2 is this. This phase will only take place 6 months after phase 1. And it will be needing like 3 or 4 or 5 appointments. So answering to your question, absolutely. You have to provide as much practical information as possible and be very simple in that information. So this will be like a long appointment. You will have to wait for 3 months before going to stage 2. So this phase should be done before the other phase, or should be done after the other phase. You have to provide as much as practical information. So when you place yourself on the patient's feet, what you have to do, you have to look at what you are reading and being simple to understand. So this is A, B, C, and D. These are the conditions go from A to E, but you have to be as simple as possible. Make it as simple and as concrete as possible, with the most practical information, of course.
George, thank you for coming on this journey and talking about a lot of different elements of patient communication and writing reports and letters and what should go in your letter. And what about, you talked even about warranties, and you mentioned all these other things that we didn't script for and gave so much value. Any closing comments, my friend?
Well, I think that the reason why I created MakeMeClear is also because of a philosophy of communicating with patients. And I think that dentistry in recent years has drifted into a lot of marketing, it's a lot of easy and fast treatments. And the reason why MakeMeClear was developed is because I didn't want that dentist that want to do comprehensive dentistry that the patient actually needs. I didn't want those dentists to be into a disadvantages of the clinics or the dentists that are much more salesy, that are much more aggressive in sales. So if you want to do comprehensive dentistry, please be hopeful. Dentistry that is comprehensive is beautiful, and you can do it, but you have to develop communication skills. MakeMeClear is just one tool to help you become more transparent and to improve the efficiency of your communication, to be able to do the dentistry that you love.
Amazing, George. Thank you so much for giving up your time. I know you're so busy in Portugal in your clinic and stuff, but thanks for giving time to speak to listeners about how to make crystal clear treatment plans. That's going to wow the patients, just like it has my patients. And oh my God, I'm so glad I discovered MakeMeClear, and I'm really excited. My principals can see it. I mean, when I come into work and I made a new plan, I want to show my nurse, I want to show my principal, and the patients are just completely wowed by this. So thank you for making MakeMeClear, and thank you for making it all clear. Really appreciate you having on today, George.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure for me. Sometimes I feel that comprehensive dentistry is something that is going into extinction, and especially with guys like you that are a lot into functional dentistry and are spreading the word of how fun functional and comprehensive dentistry can be. So I thank you so much for having me, and I hope that we can collaborate more in the future. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Protrusive, thank you so much for listening all the way to the end. I really appreciate you. Do check out the show notes on the website where you can download an example report that's been generated. So the URL for this episode will be www.protrusive.co.uk/treatment plans. And let me know how you guys get on with MakeMeClear. And remember, don't sign up for it unless you've got that, a string of patients that need their treatment plans. Like if you're going to take a 2-week vacation, not like anyone's going anywhere, but maybe when you listen to this in the future and you think, hey, you know what, I'm going on vacation, then unless you're actually doing some treatment plans on vacation, don't sign up, because I want you to get the maximum benefit from the trial period, which I sort of neglected initially, but when I came around to making these plans, it's been amazing. And I hope you guys enjoyed the chat with Dr. Jorge Cardoso today. And hey, next episode will be episode 50. How about that? Okay, so I'll raise them back to 50 PDP episodes, but I've got a few other things. There's something called group function coming out. So I'm coming up with something called group function, which will be the third arm of the podcast, which is where when we ask questions as a community. So anyone on the Facebook group that asks a question, sometimes it's a good way to answer the question working as a group. So I hope you like the name group function, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Thanks so much.